Peace, everybody. I'm back with another video. I wanted to kind of flesh out this concept of Asar that I touched upon in the last recording, the corrections to Israel, daughter of Egypt. I want to call attention to the Hebrew lexicons. Sometimes I've been doing this for decades. I started off with a Strong's Concordance. There's a Strong's online concordance, but I think they've kind of merged with this site called Blue Letter Bible. But this is from my notes from years and years ago, just studying the etymology of the word Israel that I've been touching upon. And the entry is number 833 in the Hebrew lexicon, and it reads Asar. I'll touch upon how the SH doesn't really make it anything different than Asar. It says Asar, a primitive root. That means it's very old. To be straight, used in the widest sense, especially to be level, to be right or righteous, happy, figuratively to go forward, to be honest, proper, a call, be, blessed, / happy, go, guide, lead, relieve. Then it has Asar, apostrophe L. And then the next entry over it has Asar, L as one word, ASAR, apostrophe L in small letters. And it says to be right of God, an Israelite. Now notice there's no reference to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, children of Israel, none of that. It's strictly speaking of moral character, and it's under the umbrella of the gods, Asar and El, or speaking of moral character as attributes of being in alignment with Asar and El, right? So the point was I wanted to give a solid basis for that, and it's not something that I'm just coming up on my own. It's what's actually how the Hebrew Bible defines the oldest meaning of Israel or an Israelite. And again, at the end of all that, it says Israelite. Again, I wanted to kind of flesh out the era that this was happening in. So historically, this relates to the vine out of Egypt verse, which is Psalms, right? Psalms, I think it's Psalms 80 and 8. Thou hast brought a vine out of Egypt. It says something about removing the heathen so that he could plant the vine. But what a lot of people don't understand about the Psalms and the Proverbs is that those were originally Egyptian books. They were written by Egyptian sages. The first is Amenemhotep, who goes back to about the 23rd century BC. So he's a good 1400 years before David or Solomon would have even been born. So to say that Solomon wrote it in, the Israel monarchy, quote unquote, was founded around sometime between 1000 BC and 900 BC. And then, David reigned for a while and he had his son Solomon, and Solomon allegedly wrote Proverbs and Ecclesiastes, and David allegedly wrote the Psalms, and all these books together are referred to as the Sapient books, or the books of wisdom. But identical books, much older, have been found. I mean, the Psalms and Proverbs are literally paraphrases. Some have the identical language, and there's just even the same amount of chapters. There's this one I think it's the teachings of Amen Mop. And you can Google these things. Amen Mop, Amenope, Amen Mop. And he has the 30, some of his stuff is paraphrased in also other books like Joshua, but the Proverbs are definitely taken from that. And he's quoting, he lived around the time just before the Israelite monarchy, like 13. I had written the date down, I can't figure, but it's between a period ending around 1077 or 1050 something. So just about 100 years before David would have even been around to write. But some of the things that he wrote, he's referencing Tahotep from the 23rd century BC, like about 2300 BC. So these writings were ancient before Israel was even thought of. So a lot of scholars have tried to deflect away from the fact that they were identically copied. Some may even say it's just a coincidence, or, maybe they had the same source, or who knows, maybe Israel, influenced Egypt. Just ridiculous conjectures. But one of the justifications they tried to use was that these Hebrew words that seem to title the Proverbs were different than the title for the Egyptian books. But that's been cleared up because there was a word that was being mistaken for, I think, officers and some other thing, but it's very similar to a word that means 30. And that 30 is a crucial part of the way that Amen Emnot's writings were titled. So, back to the fact that, for clarification, so a lot of people quote the Psalms and they say, well, this is David, crying out to God or whatever, but these are two Egyptian sages who are writing these wisdom books. And some of the material is parables. There's different forms. Everything is just not verbatim, literal. But when they say God, their theophoric titles involve the god Ta, right? Tahotep is an initiate of the Ta initiation of cultivation system. His name is Tahotep. This is another meaning of the phrase in the Bible where it says, do not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. When it says to take a name, all of the Bible characters have what's called theophoric names. So if you practice a certain principle and you have mastered a certain principle, because that's what the higher powers are, the Neteru, the Orisha, the Eloah, all these things are principles that come across as higher intelligence in nature. So if you were someone who was initiated into a Ta, what you call it, like a guild, the cities were kind of places where the guilds existed. So Ta is also considered like an artificer of metallurgy and things like that. And so you even see this being passed around to the other systems of the Indo-Europeans who were offshoots, accretions of these gnomes. So you see the Greek Hephaestus also being a blacksmith. He's a version of Ta. And in Rome, it was Vulcan. There's even people that say that there was a blacksmith aspect to Yahweh, like he was a metallurgical, what do you recall it, like a god of metallurgy and like volcanic eruptions and things like that. So people quote these things kind of with the sentiment that this is David speaking to God. It is not. It's Tahotep and Amen Emop speaking for Amen and speaking for Ta. Now, the interesting thing about Ta is that he was the God who spoke existence into being. I have to end it here because of time. Peace.